Hello and welcome back to Sibos TV. I'm Daisy McAndrew, and as you can probably see, I have moved location. I've been released out of my studio and I've been allowed into the Innotribe area upstairs. I'm delighted to have been joined by Hayden Shaughnessy. Now, I would like to put an Innotribe sticker on you saying "Trust me, I'm a banker," but that would be wrong.
I don't want one.
No, you're not. You're not a banker. No. I might have "Hug me, I'm a Swiftie," which I might put on. I might put on later. Hayden, let me just explain why I'm talking to you.
Sure.
You've been credited with being the most refreshing thinker when it comes to innovation. So, you know, that's a big setup.
It's a lot,
there.
yeah, it's a lot to react to, isn't it? Well, I don't know that I am, but I think that one of the things that I find when I'm at a conference like Sibos is, especially if you're in the inner space area, but probably more generally, there's a desire for the problem of banking to be solved quite simply. Will it be that small startup that provides the breakthrough for everybody, or will it be something more mystical like an ecosystem? And I would tend to address more what kind of process models banks need to adopt in order to change effectively. And that's probably the biggest problem that they face, and it's the problem that they're avoiding most.
So if you're looking truly to innovate, a lot of people would say, well, let's rip up the business model and start again. What would your advice be?
Well, I don't think people say that. I think what they tend to say instead is, let's try 1,000 new projects. Or what tends to happen is that companies try many new projects. So they start ideation programs, they start to try and get more and more ideas from people about what that change might be. Or they set up their own captive funds and they try to invest in the fintech community and hope that a breakthrough will come from there.
Try to piggyback off somebody else's.
Well, I think just the normal kind of thing. You acquire the breakthrough. But I think those activities are important. I think
we're going to carry on. We're going to ignore that. Don't worry about that.
I think that some of those activities are actually misguided. I think that the proliferation of innovation activity is just simply misguided, because very often the kinds of actions that people take are very divorced from strategy. So you get lots of new innovation ideas, lots of new innovation activity, and it's irrelevant to the strategic direction of the company. But acquiring software companies is not a bad idea, having said that. But it still doesn't solve the problem. That what banks need is to understand the changes that are taking place in business processes.
And if there are changes taking place in business processes that need to be harnessed, what's the best way of understanding them? Is it to get into the mindset of people? Is it the background of the individuals that is influencing the way they think?
Well, I certainly think that in most institutions what you have now are people that were educated in the manufacturing and distribution type of mindset. And extraordinary though it may sound, financial institutions talk about themselves in that way. They often talk about one area being manufacturing, one area being distribution. So they look for analogies that make management simple and make process easy to implement. But even manufacturing has gone away from manufacturing. You know, manufacturing now outsources, and manufacturing veers very much towards services. So becoming a service and customer-centric type of institution requires entirely different process models. And I think that it's very difficult for banks, partly because they already work from the wrong analogy. So to switch from that misguided analogy to something new is just a very difficult intellectual exercise for them. But it's very doable and not very difficult to do.
So you say it's very doable. What's the response when you tell people in this sector that it's doable?
Well, I think that in any organisation you have different layers of people that are either responsive or non-responsive. And in most organisations, in most industries, you have a layer of middle to senior management who get everything. They see the business, they see the future, they're not so ingrained and they're not so defensive because they're not having to justify everything to the markets. So very often, and you can see this repeated across many industries, middle to senior management know what to do, but can't get the permissions to do it. That actually has a catastrophic effect for many industries. Again, if you look across many industries, the people that leave their organizations from those positions and create the startups that eventually become your competitors, that's the most dangerous part of business. And people always say, you know, we're scared of competition, we're scared of the disruptor, but the disruption lies within.
Because this is something I hear a lot, not just here in Sibos, but throughout different industries, that with that people say innovation has been brought into the centre of this particular organisation, but then when you talk to the individuals, they say yes, but every time I try to change something, the executive board level, think that I'm just some sort of crazy geek who doesn't know what he's doing.
Well, that's because people are not attempting to innovate the process model. I think what people are, even those people that are trying to make those kinds of propositions to their organisation, are generally speaking trying to propose a new project, a new product, more or less. And if you have to look to companies like Netflix. Netflix is the supreme process model innovator. Its whole raison d'etre is around how do I innovate process. And I advise anybody in the banking industry that really wants to learn about innovation, go look at the way Netflix has converted its whole organisation to platforms. Everything is a platform in Netflix, and everything should be a platform in the banking sector, because the banking sector actually, if you look across all industries, there's no industry that has the same strengths in platforms that the banking industry has. It just does not realise it.
So how would you do that on a practical level? How would you take a company, give me a hypothetical example of how you would go in and create all these platforms?
Well, I'm not going to give you in 2 minutes a hypothetical example of how to change RBS or Lloyd's or any other bank.
I was told you were capable of that.
Yes, but my bill. You haven't thought about the invoice. No, but I think that what large organisations are faced with as well, particularly right now because they've been bailed out, the level of redundancies that these changes imply is going to be horrendous. And about 3 months ago, Barclays laid off 19,000 people. Let me give you an example. ClickX, which was the winner of last year's prize here, has a global money transfer system, and I think is quite a dominant system now in certain areas of Asia. This global economic money transfer system employs 14 people. And that's the problem that the financial industry faces, that actually the process model changes are going to mean very large redundancies. And it's a horrible thing to say. Look at Netflix. It operates in 43 countries, 40 languages, 700 different compliance systems. It delivers to 1,000 different devices. It employs 2,000 people. So you cannot actually run a modern enterprise competitively with the kind of staffing levels that banks have. And that's the big problem. I think that's what people don't want to address.
And I think there is a certain inevitability, whether it takes 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that we will be going to a corporate makeup of far, far fewer employees across the level. And then it's just, and yes, there will be greater wealth between fewer people, even more than today.
I'm not sure that it's one of those 1%, 99% issues. I think it's a question at a governmental level of how do you redistribute people into worthwhile employment, because these systems that we've grown over the last 20, 25 years, especially through the consolidation of banking, are unsustainable in the new process model. And it's really a question of how quickly do you get to that process model and how do you deal with the fallout around it.
And presumably as that workforce changes in makeup and the way that it's run, the training emphasis will have to change. I mean, again, so many people say throughout this week and plenty of times to me before, we just can't find the technologically trained workforce.
Exactly. We don't have the number, the types of people that we need to do good technology. But it's even worse than that. I think that what you see in both Europe and America, and this might surprise people who deal with the startup community, but there's been a steady decline in business dynamism, even in America, over the past 25 years. And business dynamism is the netting out of new businesses formed and other businesses going out of business. So if you look at that, we've actually had a declining business population. So just at the time when we think we're now moving towards a more devolved type of business where big companies rely more and more on smaller businesses, we're actually seeing fewer smaller businesses survive. So you have to put banking in that context as well, that overall we have serious economic problems. Politicians don't understand them. They don't understand how the economy is being rebalanced. They don't understand the types of unemployment problems that are just about on the doorstep. So there's a lot more to this than that. And I think that by and large, everybody can be grateful that the banks are still employing people.
Well, I don't know whether that's a positive or negative note to end on, but that is the note we're going to end on. Okay. But thank you so much, Hayden Shaughnessy, for talking to me here at the Innotribe. I'm Daisy McAndrew on Sibos TV, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes with a review of the week. Bye-bye. Well, welcome back to Sibos TV. I'm Daisy McAndrew, still at Innotribe, very excited. I haven't got my Hug Me, I'm a Swiftie sticker on, but I am going to put it on. Delighted to be joined by Peter van der Were. Now, Peter, you're the boss of Innotribe here at Sibos. Is that a fair description?
Yes, I'm the architect and content curator of the 4 days of Innotribe at Sibos.
So you've had a seriously busy week.
This was a quite hectic week, yes indeed, Daisy.
What have the highlights been for you?
The first highlight this week was definitely the first session on Monday morning, which was the first session of the Cryptocurrencies Day. And that session was a really packed room. We sat 360 people in here. We had to refuse people.
You were turning them away at the door.
We had to turn them away at the door, and I heard from the statistics that we were the best attended session of the whole Sibos.
Well, you needed a much bigger room, didn't you, Peter?
Yes, a lot of people were asking for next year, when are you going to take the main stage?
That is a massive issue, isn't it? The cryptocurrencies, virtual currencies. What was the upshot of that session? What were people saying?
Well, we wanted to look at this from different dimensions. So the first session following the opening was really looking at the regulation. And so our whole intent was to make sure that we did not create a polarized type of positions between the regulators and the innovators.
Us and them.
Us and them.
Yeah.
So in everything that we do in these sessions, we try to create inclusions, and that's why we also have the bridges here in the room and the stages, because we try to create bridges, also physical bridges, where the opposing views come together to the main stage, where people then can document what they agree upon and what they eventually disagree upon.
And did those bridges work? Did you build bridges?
Oh yes, we built a lot of bridges, also in the afternoon with a lot of disruptors in the space. So we had a session where we had people from Ripple, we had people from Circle, we had some people from the security space from Norway, Cryex, and we had people from South Africa. And so those were all the existing disruptions that we see in the market. And then the session after that was really a highlight, where we had the upcoming disruption, the things that's going to come next. So we had the folks from MIT Bitcoin, of their MIT Bitcoin project. And I mean, it was really a fun, because we used the bridge here. One of the Bitcoin guys, he came in with a skateboard and the other with a bicycle, and they were meeting at the middle. But the content was more important than the whole stage setting. So from a content point of view, everybody was blown away by the maturity of the pitches of those.
Peter, I must apologise for the disco lighting. We're going to continue, but just wanted to apologise for the lights going on and off. We're having a couple of technical problems, but don't let that stop you. So, Peter, you talk about people coming in on rollerblades or roller skates and stuff, but of course there is a serious point about what you're doing here. You are innovating, you're encouraging innovation. What was the most exciting thing you heard this week about something really futuristic?
The most exciting thing, so I have three messages first. Three messages from Innotribe at Sibos. We are about content and content and content. The stage setting is the packaging, but the core, the foundation is content. And so the most innovative thing I've seen this week was from Vitalik Buterin, who is, in my opinion, a real genius. He just is 20 years old. He got 18 million funding. He is funded also 100,000 by the Peter Thiel Foundation. And he is really building the next generating operating system for financial services. This is really deeply disruptive. The guy stands as a rock in the question and answer sessions. He is absolutely a genius. I'm almost comparing him to the young Bill Gates. When he really starts about platform like
Peter, tell me his name again, and it's a name I'm going to hear a lot more of,
yes,
isn't it?
Vitalik Buterin. And he's from Canada, 20 years old, absolute genius. He blew everybody away.
Astonishing. And to be here in this environment, to be such a young age, and as you said, being thrown questions of suspicion and striking fear into the heart of all these bankers, and to stand up against it, it must have been extraordinary to watch.
And having this capability already at the age of 20 to not only do the strategic messaging, but also going down to the level of the code and creating the connections and the bridges. I mean, this is a guy really to follow.
Wow, amazing. Well, it sounds like you've had an incredible week here. What's next for Innotribe?
Well, we are going to continue on this rhythm. So next year there will be for sure another Innotribe at Sibos. Many people ask me, why are you doing all this effort? Wouldn't it be easier
As in, what's the point?
What's the point?
Yeah.
Or wouldn't it be easier to just program a couple of speakers one after the other? And I'm saying no. If you think that this is where we set the bar, this is the starting point. So next year we want to continue in creating really immersive learning experiences, creating events that are really memorable, and I would like to start injecting art and performance in this whole mix so that we resonate with people at not only a cognitive level but also at an emotional, unconscious level, so that they really take it in and internalize the knowledge that we try to share with them.
That sounds fantastic, although there's a little bit in my head that's thinking, are these going to be bankers who are going to be singing and dancing?
No, we won't have bankers singing and dancing.
Slightly worried about that.
Yeah. At one point I had also the idea to start singing my own content, but my wife said, no, don't go that
Well,
that
feel
far.
free if you'd like to give us a little taster of that.
I would like to
We'd be
bring in the
delighted.
experts from music, from art, in the space to create these immersive learning experiences.
And so, as well as learning experience, presumably that's also a way of, I mean, I guess it's the same thing, but looking at something from a completely different angle and seeing whether you can reach a different conclusion.
Yes, and I think we have to work harder on creating the bridges with the rest of Sibos, and it was a really strong comment in yesterday's session. Some people were suggesting that a couple of the sessions that we had here should go on main stage next year or even at the plenary level. And I think the best suggestion I've heard was to program an innovation session every morning of Sibos for the general public and let people then, because then you open up their mind and they go with an open mind into the rest of the conference.
So do that in your own space or on the main space?
Well, I think the starting innovation session, I would like to see that on the main stage and then let people decide for themselves whether they want to come to this sort of Innotribe space or they want to go to the Market Infrastructures Forum or the Corporates Forum or whatever they want, but they will go in there with an open mind.
And Peter, how long have you been involved with Innotribe?
I'm the co-founder of Innotribe, so I was there
So
from day one, and this is my 6th Innotribe at Sibos.
This is your 16th?
6th.
6th, I was going to say, you don't look old enough to have
Yeah.
done 16. This is your 6th. Because as time goes on, particularly this comment that people have said, Innotribe should be on the main stage, is there a temptation to go more mainstream, or is there a natural progression, a natural pull, or is that what you're very much trying to resist?
It's a great question, Daisy. I think the story for Innotribe is not about scale. I think we have really to protect the sort of safe, free zone type of environment that we have here. And so to really take care of that and not try to scale it to like 500 people or 1,000 people, because then we are becoming a session like any of the other sessions. So it's to plant the seeds in all the areas of Sibos, and then for the people that feel tempted to it, not force them, tempted to it, to seduce them to come into our space and to enjoy everything that we put here together.
Because even in the 6 years that you've been going, the position of technology and innovation and the status within most organizations of that has moved center stage, hasn't it, within most organizations? So it's something that was considered the domain of the experts and the geeks and the child geniuses and so on, really has moved into the mainstream of most organizations now. And so you can see that the natural pull would be pulling you into the mainstream as well.
We heard it in the previous session this morning about captive funds, where Matteo, I think, said it 6 years ago. You didn't have any heads of innovation in the financial institution.
Exactly.
Today, every financial institution has a head of innovation.
And some of them are on the board.
And some are on the board.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that we are seeing is that in the beginning we had more geeky type of audience in this space. And Javier made a comment yesterday, it's the first time that I see so many black suits in the space, which is a proof that we are making the bridges, that we are starting to attract the bankers into this environment.
Absolutely. It's not an area that can be left to the fringes.
Yeah, and so fringes, what I'm trying to do in curating the content, in the very first versions it was technology only, and so we have moved gradually in non-technology topics like corporate culture, or Banks for a Better World, or that sort of themes. And every time again, people are challenging us and say, why are you doing this at Sibos? Nobody will come there. And guess what? Every time people are attracted to these things which are more inspiring from a human point of view and not only about the pure tech or the pure bang type of environment.
But that's, if you look at what younger generations want out of their jobs, it's now so different than what, our generation would have been looking for from their jobs, and that's all reflected in I'm guessing, in the subject matters that you're tackling here.
Well, I'm spending an awful lot of time in scanning what's going on outside on the edges of our ecosystem, and I think we are moving into a world where people probably don't only have one job, but they have a collection, a portfolio of jobs. I think it's very important to have, for example, one foot in your organization and another foot in another organization, which may be more disruptive, so that we can create cross-fertilizations between the more conservative banking world and some things that happen out there in other industries that are dramatically more disruptive.
Well, Peter, I can see why people speak so highly of you and Innotribe. It's been fascinating talking to you and telling me all about your plans for the future and how this week's gone. So best of luck with Innotribe from now on. That's Peter van der Weyer here in the Innotribe room. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Kevin Johnson, who of course we talked to earlier in the week, Innotribe Startup Challenge Manager. The challenge is over.
Yes.
You had a short list. What was the standard like this year? What sort of companies were vying for those prizes?
It was an amazing competition yesterday. There were 15 companies that came in, and any one of them could have won. I was really blown away with not only the quality but the way these guys presented. To get up on stage in front of a room full of 200 people is not easy, and they did an amazing job.
So don't tell me quite yet who won or what their products were, but tell me about a couple of the others that caught your eye and your imagination.
There was a lot of different innovations from across the industry, and I think the thing we've seen this year is it's really bringing innovation to the core of banking. I think 10, maybe even all 15 could actually have real applications to anybody who's here at Sibos. So I really encourage everybody to sort of get involved, watch our videos and pitches back on YouTube, and come and find these guys and speak to them.
Right now I can reveal that we do have the winners standing to my left. Kevin, just briefly tell me why these two gentlemen won two different challenges categories.
The two different challenger categories. So we have a winning startup, who's a small stage company, and we have a winning innovator, who's our larger stage companies.
And Idan Yego, you're the startup, and your company's called...
Correct, I'm the CEO of
Epiphyte. And Shailesh Naik, Matchmove is
Matchmove indeed, yes.
Is your company. Well, Idan, first of all, tell me, what does your company do?
Well, you know, everyone's heard about Bitcoin.
Yes, a lot
and
this week.
everyone's, talking about the price and does it go up, does it go down? But that's really not the most interesting thing. The most interesting thing is the power of the technology. It's the best way that we have invented thus far, using blockchain technology to transfer value, digital value, from any party to any other party. And so we've been focused for the last 2 years on helping banks integrate this technology and figure out how they can utilize it to reduce their costs and increase their margins. And it was very gratifying for us to come here after all of the hype and all of the confusion around the story, and for banks to say, this is interesting, this is the technology solution we've been looking for, this is the compliance solution we've been looking for. So this has been really great for us.
And Shailesh, Matchmove was in a different category. You weren't being pitted against each other, and you won. Well, tell us what Matchmove does.
Matchmove's found a way to bring the millions of uncarded people who can't actually buy online, but who do have a mobile phone. Smartphone penetration in emerging markets is now 25%, but card penetration is still only at 3%. Matchmove's found a way in which we can take existing card technology, combine it with new mobile technology, and let anyone get a card and let anyone buy online.
Goodness me, apologies for that rather horrible noise, or it seems to have gone. Briefly, Idan, what difference will it make having this award given to you?
Oh, for us? So I think for us, we've been working with a small number of banks to develop our technology, but we've worked with a couple of tier 1 banks and some smaller banks, but this is a public stamp of approval. It's the credibility that this type of technology has finally arrived for the banking and the financial industry, I think, is going to be the biggest boost for us.
Shailesh, I'm imagining we're all very much looking forward to Bill Gates' speech this afternoon. I'm imagining your company must have a place in his heart, certainly for the significance to his message.
Absolutely. I think one of the key messages of this event is financial inclusion, how to bring the many millions who are unable to tap into the benefits that you and I enjoy online and through purchasing. We found a way to do that. So financial inclusion is what we're about, and I'm very much hoping that Bill Gates will pay attention to it.
Well, gentlemen, many, many congratulations from all the team here on Sibos TV. Enjoy what's left of Sibos 2014, and maybe we'll see you this time next year.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's it from Innotribe.